All right. Well, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our recap for oopsies, April April 2025. I am a month behind here. Yes, okay. Okay, all right. I clicked on the wrong one there. So, yes, this is our recap for April 2025 releases. My name is Amanda. I'm going to start us off with the USAS releases. And then we'll go through USPS, ESS, and talk through everything. Okay, let's see. I found a new option I want to use here. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Um, so for the USAS releases, we had two regular releases, so April 14th and April 25th. And then let's see here. So for the updates, we had a couple things. The first one here is the user import was updated. So for the user import, we had added the functionality so that usernames themselves can be modified. And so this is the UUID of the user, which is the long ID that you see. That's usually a combination. Well, it is a combination of numbers and letters. And that is like kind of the background key to those user fields. So if you are, making an update, you must include that existing long ID in order to modify the existing users. But yeah, so if they did want to change usernames, like, maybe make it their email or change it from their email or something like that, that username cannot be changed. So that was included. The next thing here is the ability to delete a workflow from the workflows admin grid. So I'm going to show this one in the software. Make note of what, of these notes here. I added a couple. So first of all, this process will not recall or reject any existing approval status on the requisition, and it does not impact the requisition itself. It simply removes it from the workflow associated with the requisition. So this feature is intended to be used when workflows exist in error and need to be removed. So this is not something like there's still going to be the regular process that they would use to recall requisitions, to reject requisitions. As far as the standard process of the requisition approvals and rejections and that sort of thing, that all will still work the same. The reason this was added is because we had a couple very rare situations where something happened and the requisition in the workflows and like the approval side was not matching what the status of that requisition was in the actual requisition page. So, for example, like somehow the requisition was actually approved. It made it all the way through the process, but there was still like a requisition approval showing, like it was still telling them they need to approve it, even though it was already approved. Or they submitted the requisition for approval, but then they deleted it. And then now it's still showing out there, but it doesn't even exist. It's deleted from the requisition grid. That is when this option comes into play. Then this would just go delete it from the workflow. So I don't see you using this option like too often. I think this is something that you may even use like when SSDT is like, hey, yeah, you got to use that option. But that's why I wanted to talk through it. So let me show you where this is. All right, so this is going to be in the workflows admin page. And so on this page, it's kind of just a page where you can like view anything, review any of like the in progress requisitions. Um, and what was added was this X right here. So this didn't used to be here. So now if you click X, it does pop up and it has the message on there that says that this will only delete it from the workflow admin grid. It will not recall or reject. So there is a message. Oops, I pushed cancel. So there is a message that shows that there. And then if you want to proceed, you would click to delete it and it would delete it out of here, or cancel if that's not really what you want to do. So, not everyone has this full workflows admin access. This is a restricted view. So, likely it would just be, whoever is like managing workflows would have that. Um, so it's not something that just anyone can do either. It is something that's restricted based on the page that it's on. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we have next. Oh, so we updated the report link for canned reports to include parameters. And here's the list of the different canned reports that this affected. And then we have a note here. In addition, the financial detail report only, the URL generated by the link can be directly modified to change user parameters and update the report contents. So here's a little example of what this looks like, what we're talking about. So first, if you look at the screenshot, when you generate the report link, it gives you a link to be able to run that report through. And there's this checkbox at the bottom here that says include parameters. So if you do not check that, this is what the link looks like. It's just got, if you look at the different pieces of it, see we have, I guess I can't highlight with this. Oh, I kind of can. It says the canned report, and it's basically like including this as a code where when the link runs, it would, be able to pick up whatever those parameters were and run it. However, if you include the parameters, then this is what this is talking about is it includes the actual like options that it was run with. So landscape, PDF, um, suppress details, false option. So all of these like correspond here, start date, end date, and fun. So all of those different pieces of this link actually directly include what the parameters are. So this you some of you may be thinking why? Why does it matter? And especially when it comes to this financial detail, we had a specific request to update this because some third parties were using the actual link to pull data instead of like grabbing everything through the SOAP service or that sort of thing. This was like another means to pull information, and they wanted to use the link, and then they wanted to be able to like change the start and stop dates just within the link to get different information. And so we had it requested that this would work because this is available for the template reports as well. It was something that was kind of simplified when it got to the canned reports, I believe, or maybe it was not working. But either way, we fixed it and we've updated it so that for that use case, this would be addressed. And then let me hop back to the software. Whoops. And then sorry, I accidentally had I had my chat open if anybody has questions, but it was like clicked out of the window and accidentally closed that. So let's go look. Um And I know not everybody may use um the report link that often either. So just a refresh on where that is. If you pick a save and recall, so if we come in here and we said, okay, I want not do I mean honestly it could be any format, so it doesn't matter. But so we picked one of our save and recalls here. Okay, I guess I have them saved. We'll do that. Again, I don't think it matters. I'm not even gonna run it. I just feel like I was looking for a format that might be a little bit more common for us to use. So when you choose a save and recall, or if you create a save and recall, you enter your parameters here, and then you could pick a blank one and then create a new save and recall. If I'm gonna actually I don't need to tab over, but this link button becomes highlighted, once you have a save and recall selected or saved. And this button right here with the link, that is what would be able to give you the report link. And so this is where if I copy this, if I just do copy link address, or include parameters, that's the difference. So this second one now includes parameters to make it a long link. Um, so it would be the long link like this. And that's one of those things where it totally depends on the situation you're using it for. Sometimes that is used, and probably why I had the HTML examples on there. That can be used like with Excel to pull data over to Excel via link. And if you're using that, you might not want to use the long link because I think that that can cause like usually if the link's too long, sometimes Excel can't read it all. So it definitely depends on the reason that you're using that as far as which one you'd want to use. But but the basic update is just making sure that all of these reports that are listed here, the canned versions, are able to do this full long one. So that's what we're looking at there. This next one, we updated the audit report to correctly show changes to custom fields. Um, if only a custom field was modified on an object, so like on a page, on a record, the change previously wasn't showing on the audit report. Um, it was still being saved though. Let me tell you the situation that this came up in. We wanted to make sure to address this as soon as we could because obviously we understand that like getting that audit information can be really important. Um, but one thing that we had this reported for is the ACH fields that are on the vendor are actually custom fields. And so what was happening is that if you were to enter all of the information in all of those fields, then it was showing on the audit report. But if you like went in and just changed like one thing on them, then it wasn't picking up on the audit report, which obviously is concerning, right? Like, especially ACH information. You may need to know like who updated that, when exactly it was updated. Again, that was still existing, like the record of the change was still existing. It just wasn't showing on the report. So we were able to look it up in the situations that happened, but uh but now we've fixed it to make sure the updates, especially those in that scenario, would show on the audit report, regardless of, if it's just one field or if it's like all of them entered. And then this next one too, I was excited to see this one on here before fiscal year end, is they updated the column sizes on the certificate reports to widen the columns and properly display a value in 10 millions. Um, so it was happening sometimes um on these reports where, and those have a lot of different figures on them, where if the column basically couldn't handle, a value with so many digits, and so it was either getting cut off or sometimes it wouldn't show. And I know that was a really big problem for treasurers that happened to get figures that hit this. And the problem was like 10 millions, I know that's a lot. But if it was like a negative and then it had parentheses on the sides, like that would be extra characters. And so there were other situations too where it was like, the number of characters, not necessarily like the size of the value. I mean, even 10 million sometimes like it would. There are certain funds that could hit that for larger districts or whatnot. So anyways, they've addressed that spacing to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. So like certificate of available balances when we get to the beginning of the year, appropriation resolution. Oh, actually, no, wait, I think that's not one of the certificate reports. But yeah, the certificate of balances reports, specifically, this was applied to. So that is good. They were able to work that one in there with some fiscal year end time. And then we had a patch for a specific district to clean up some bad data way back from classic migration. We try and fit those in when we can. And then we had some background work happening. So I know we've seen these on a few of these release recaps for a while now. We created the REST API for budget and expenditure, cash appropriation, and revenue accounts. And we're working on some internal refactoring to improve the build process as well. So some things on our end. All right. Well, that's what I have for USAS. We did not have any inventory releases in April, so I don't have anything specific to talk about there, but we are ready to move on to USPS.
Thank you, Amanda.
Sure, no problem. Let me stop sharing here. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I think it's that one. Okay, I think you see my screen. Okay, good morning. Happy Friday. We will be going through the payroll part of, where are they? Of the releases. There they are. We had 3 for April, 2 regular releases, one on the 11th and one on the 25th. And then the other one was a hot fix on the 21st. The new features, there really wasn't any. This was all done behind the scenes, no visible changes on that one. And then also for the patches, we had a patch internal performance update, just an improvement on the payroll accounts query, and then also a updated service layer for the payroll payments, and that was internal, so no real changes that you're going to see. That's all behind the scenes. So then we'll move to the improvements. There was a improvement done that was found on the direct deposit default notice of the form, that the pay group, the position start dates, so it would be the these dates right here, we're using the original when you initialize the payroll, those begin and start dates. Now, if you had addition, if the employee was on a different pay group start date, it was not using those dates. So that was found, and they updated that to these new tokens now. So now we'll look at the pay group start date. And also, this is the updated, corrected template now for the direct deposit that includes these. So if you have districts that have custom fields, and maybe you added something to made a custom field, or you can just take this also and update it on your custom form and just use these and insert those in the form. And I have, let's see. Let's see. Yeah. So here's my direct deposit notice. What they would have to do is just go ahead and edit that. And then this is the updated one already, but if they have a custom direct deposit, they can update that and insert this field pretty easily. So we have to do that for the start and stop by doing that merge field. So just, they can use those tokens that I have on there. The next one was a request for the total board paid amounts. Now, this was only included on the check and direct deposit XML files. So if you're using a third party to print your the forms, then that will automatically be included. But now, if you have a direct deposit default that maybe you're here and there printing off PDF versions, you would need to add this token. So again, that is not on the actual default direct deposit form. That was not included on that. So just a reminder, it's just the XML for using the third party. So again, you would have to do that right click, insert, you can insert it right above the total deductions for the employee. I added it right above there. This is just an example of what I did, and then added that token in there. And now when I print those direct deposit notices, it prints. And again, you can add this if you want to get the total for that, or again, some districts just like to have a little line here where they can just automatically just type that in on the form and save it and use that as their custom form and just put that those are total board. They don't have to have a total down here if they want, but we did add it. So if you did want to see that on the PDF version, then again, you have to add that manually. There was an update made to the, oops, my arm hit the space bar. The sorting of the columns in some of the reports or in sorting objects. So let me, of course, log me out. Hopefully I can get logged in easily. Yeah. So again, some of those were under the benefit update projections. The accrual, convert personal leave to pay, convert personal leave to sick. I won't go through all of them, but I just wanted to show kind of what they were stating here. The accrual, like here. Now they're in alphabetical order. Last name, first name. And then that was updated also on all the benefit obligation reports, payment transaction status report, and then the wage obligation reports. The next one was the audit report. Will now show the custom fields that were modified. And again, I think Amanda said it pretty well how if you were doing one object, it was there behind the scenes, but it just wasn't showing on the audit report. So they went through the USPS side of it and just made sure that if there was any custom form or custom fields, that got updated, and now they will show on the audit report too. There was an issue discovered with importing attendance and absent entries. Districts were noticing when they were editing an attendance that it was blank. And so they did an update to split both of those out now. So now you're going to see position and compensation instead of position / compensation. You're going to see those separated on the attendance record. Mine's probably not updated, but oh yeah, here we go. So here we have a secretary and a compensation record. So now you'll see them separated. And this was for any of when they were importing any of their attendance in. And then what they were noticing also was if they would go in and edit, let me scratch that. They also, for the prior attendance absence, if the position on the compensation was archived, it would still show, even if you go in now, if this employee's compensation was archived, I would still see it. It would not be removed. But if you would go in and select a different position and save it, and then if you would go back in and say, oh, I made that mistake, I want it to be that original one that I had, but it was archived, you're no longer going to see it. Like secretary would have been archived, it would be gone. So they would have to go back in to that compensation, unarchive it, and then go back and select that position if that was really that's supposed to be that first position that they selected. In here, the position is using the position description from the employee's position. And then the compensation is going to be using the type, which is contract or non-contract, and then the label. So that is where those fields are where these are coming from. Okay, like I said, adding new ATP entries. They won't show any archived positions or compensations. We are going to, we require that they do use the label when they're importing any of all their attendance now. Before, used to be only if you're posting to future or current option payment, but now we suggest that they do include the label so it knows if they have multiple compensations to the same position, I should say. So we do require that they do include the label. That way they will show what compensation and what position. And that is column Y. And we do have that on our import attendance documentation. So you can oops, pull that up here so you can see that. And down here, column Y. There it is. So the compensation lab. So just make sure it goes to the appropriate compensation. Because sometimes employees have one position, but they might have two compensations for the same number. We've seen that with districts do that before. So the label is how they identify it. And then there was an improvement. There was an issue with on the ESS side, how it came over into the payroll side when they were importing those over. The post absence, it was missing that compensation right here. So they did an update on that. So now when they're importing those over into USPS, the compensation will be filled in for those absences. Okay, that's really all there was on the releases for the payroll side. And if there isn't any questions on that, I will send that over to, I believe, Michelle.
You are correct.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Stop sharing. There we go. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Okay. Share my screen here. So let me get going. Okay, I'm assuming everybody can see my screen here. I'm having a little trouble with Zoom this morning. Guys able to see me scrolling through the release recap?
Yes.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, get situated here. Okay, welcome everybody. Good to see some faces here this morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the ESS release recap here. I'm just going to scroll right down to that area. And we had two ESS releases this time. We had one on April 10th, a regular release, and then and that was version 6, and then version 7 came out on April 25th. So no hot fixes this time, yay. So I wanted to kind of go over this and dig into, at the end, dig into the timesheet exports a little bit more. I know you guys are looking forward to that. So let's talk about what happened here in April. For a new feature here, we did add a job calendar option underneath the system configuration ESS functionality configuration. And so we put that in there because some districts wanted the job calendars to show and some did not. So we wanted to give that ability to turn off the job calendar from the menu option for districts that do not want the job calendars to show. So I'll just show you quickly where that's at. I'm in my ESS application here, and I'm just going to go down to System, Configuration, and I'm going into the ESS Functionality Configuration. It's this one right here. So mine's turned on, so obviously I can see the job calendar menu option over here. And so that was the new feature that we added. For improvements, okay, for improvements, we had quite a few that happened last month. with the job calendar, we did update how that was behaving. On the view, it was improved to check the compensations first before pay groups, before it was checking pay groups. And so we updated that, improved that to check compensations first and then pay groups for that information to appear on the job calendar. Another improvement we had was allow the ability to edit the substitute needed checkbox when a user is in the district leave request view. So just let me show you where that's at here. I'm going to go into leave requests and I'm going to go to the view district leave request. And with the ability, the role that I have to actually, go into this option, I'm able, you'll notice here, to edit. So you can see the edit option here. And if I just click on one of these here, just pick on this top one here, I can go in and check and uncheck the substitute needed option in here. Okay. Improvements to the select and grid components, allowing you to multi-select. We've been making changes or updates, improvements to that for several of our different grids. And I believe the ones that we focused on last month were improvements to leave requests and to the timesheet group and group chains. So if I would actually go into one of those, and I'll just pick on one here, I'll go into users and I'll go into groups. And I'll just go in and pretend like I'm creating a group. And if I go down to the group members, here is where we're talking about you can multi-select. So that's a nice feature that we improved on that. And same thing with group chains as well. I went in and created a group chain. If I wanted to go down to a specific area here and select multiple pay groups, I can do that. So that was the improvement made to that. The audit report. So we do have our audit report out there and we keep making improvements to this and based off of user feedback as well. But I wanted to show you some of those improvements that were made. So let me talk about these first and then we'll go in and show them to you. So we did add the ability to see when a change was made to a user's role. So if I went in and made a change to a role, maybe added an additional role to a user, those now show up on the audits report. We do have some sub-report options that were added. There is a hide unchanged field values that was added. So what that will do is it will allow me to either, if I made changes to, like, say, that user record, and I just, updated the role, if I go in and when I'm running the audits report and I select hide unchanged field values, what happens then is that it will only show me the change that was made to her user role. It won't show me everything else in the user information for that employee. And so obviously if I deselect this, then when I go in and run it, it'll show me all the fields for that user. But it will highlight the change that I made. So I'll show you that here in a little bit. We'll go through an example. The audit report parameter form, we did make some improvements actually in there. And again, I'll show you those when we get in there. But it allows me to, it requires a revision object type be entered. Before it didn't. And I think it was just spinning and report wasn't creating correctly. So we require that to be entered. And also if a UUID, that's an optional field in there. If a UUID is entered, it must conform to that UUID format. So I'll talk about that here in a little bit. And the sort option, if a sort option is selected, the sort direction must also be selected. And vice versa. If I do a sort direction, I have to choose a sort option. So let me take you guys in there. Brittany, I see that you did raise your hand. Did you have a question? Okay, if not, I will go ahead and show this to you guys here. So let me go in here and I'm scrolling down to system. No problem, Brittany. I'm going down to system and I'm going to go down to the audits report. Okay, so let's talk about these things that we improved here. Like I said, this is required now, the revision object type. So, and you'll notice too, for those fields that are required, it does have a little bullet next to it to indicate. So I have to put something in here. I'm going to select user. And here was where I was talking about the revision object ID. This is optional. So this is a UUID. So I think really, I think the only place you can really pull that off of is probably like the user record and things like that. But it has to be in the correct UUID format. So for me, I would just do a copy of that entire UUID and paste it in here in order to make sure that I have everything correct. And then the other thing is the improvement was to sort by. So if I do put in a certain sort by here, then I have to select the sort direction. It won't let me do that without selecting a sort direction, and vice versa. I go in here and select a sort direction, I have to select a sort by. So here are the, based on the revision object type I selected, which was user, here are my sub-report options, and include field report, which is a header information at the top of the report. And here's the new one, hide unchanged field value. So what I'm going to do is I am going to leave this blank for now, and I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to deselect this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this user report for the first. I think I did something yesterday. I hope I did. And I'm going to go ahead. And so this hide unchanged field value is deselected. I'm going to generate this. It shouldn't take very long. And so what you see then here is you're going to see everything on that. So let me look here. I modified some information on here. That was a system update that was made because it's showing me that here. So that wasn't something I did. It was something that was done behind the scenes with the system. Here is what I did as admin user. I went in and modified, excuse me, her role. And because I didn't specify just to see the changes, it's going to show me everything in her user account, but highlight the actual change that was made, which is I went in and added the sub-coordinator read-only to her existing role so that she now has both that and the user. So now if I go back and say hide unchanged field values, I'm betting I'm only going to see the role change. So let's generate this again. And there we go. It just shows me the actual change that was made in her account. So I don't have all the other stuff there that never changed, that I didn't make any updates to. So that's the difference between those two options. What else? I think that's all that was in the audits report. So I'm going to go back. And timesheets. That's probably where I'm going to spend most of my time here on this. With the timesheet improvements that we made, we added an edit button to the timesheet line item grid. Before, you just had to click on the line, and it was a little messy and a little cumbersome. So what we did is we decided to improve that a little bit, and instead added an edit button like we do with a lot of our other grids in order to make it, more uniform to how other grids are working. And so I'll just log in. I'm going to log in as a certain user. Log in as Susan. And when I go to my timesheets here, and I'm just going to go in and look at her timesheet here, and I'm viewing it at this point. And when I go in and edit, here is where I'm going to see the edit option. And this will allow us to actually edit that line item. And so that's a little bit or less clunky for sure. I can go in then and make changes if I need to on that item. Also, you're going to see, I don't think this came out yet. I think this might be a sneak preview of the next release. You're also going to see a copy line item. So allow you to copy this item to another item. So that's going to be a new feature on the new release. I just got to see a sneak preview of that one. So that's how the edit behaves. And what else do we have here? Also, and I'm just going to show you this on the wiki page here. We did improve an issue with leave requests for partial days. They were not always adjust in the timesheet line items correctly. So we made that improvement. So here's an example. A timesheet shift was 8 to 4, but the employee put in their leave request for 9 to 3. How should that reflect? And it wasn't reflecting quite accurately in the timesheet, so we improved that. So here's what it should show now. It should show 8 to 9 was regular, then 9 to 3 was sick, and then 3 to 4 is regular again. So that's how it should appear in the timesheet now. We also moved the timesheet export option from the timesheets menu to the timesheet manager menu. And we made some improvements in the timesheet export as well. So I want to focus on those. I'm going to go back and I'm going to log back in, close out of here in my admin account and show you these. While that's thinking, does anyone have any questions? Okay, so like I said, underneath the timesheet export was underneath timesheets. Now that's been moved and it's under timesheet manager. And here is the timesheet export. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to a slideshow. And I want to focus, and it takes, for me to go in and actually generate all these timesheets and export them and stuff, that would take us a lot of time. So I wanted to save us some time, and I put everything out here on a little PowerPoint to kind of go over it with you guys. So I'm going to move over to that. And what we're doing is we're focusing on the export timesheets and these new or updated options right here. We changed those in April, the April releases. So I want to go into these in a little more detail. Now, for those of you that were on the timesheet overview session that we did a couple weeks ago, we did go over it. We did cover these, but we keep improving this, and I just, some of this may have changed. Some of it is still maybe the same stuff that I covered that day, but I just wanted to go over these options and then do a couple scenarios with you of when would you use these options, and just talk about that, just to get you a bit more comfortable if you do have districts that are wanting to use the timesheet module. So this just kind of shows that export timesheets option. And when I click on that, it does show the actual export options here. And this is just more of a screenshot of what all do these options do. And so this top option here, mark all timesheets as exported. This is an optional one, but I feel like it's like a necessary one. So what that's going to do is going to make sure that all items on the timesheet have been. Cannot see my screen. Let me stop sharing and share again. Sorry about that. How about now? Can you see my slides? Everyone see that okay? Okay, awesome. Thank you for letting me know about that, Vicki. I don't know, Zoom's acting weird for me today. Okay, so this is the first slide that I'm talking about. And so the first option I'm talking about is the optional one, mark all timesheets as exported. But like I said, I feel like this is kind of necessary. What this does is it goes out there right now. Before you export, those all show as approved status. So once you export them, whatever is included on the CSV file will get updated to exported status. So you may have items on the, depending on the options you choose down here, like especially you just want to export exception and overtime items, all those regular items will remain because they aren't on the CSV file. They will remain as approved. They will not get updated when you export using this option. Same thing with holiday and leave type of line items that you have on your timesheet. So in order to catch them all, it's probably a good idea just to have this check marked so that if you do use just exception and overtime, if you check mark this at the same time, all items on the timesheet will get updated to an exported status. If you don't, that's okay. It doesn't harm anything. Just those like regular items and holiday items and overtime items will stay as approved, and that timesheet will hang out here until you go in and update those. So if you're like, why is this still sitting out here? I exported, but oh yeah, it was just exception and overtime. All right, I got to clean up and make sure everything else gets updated. You can go in, select those, choose the mark all timesheets exported, and it will go out there then and update those remaining items on the timesheet to an exported status. Once everything is reflecting an exported status on the timesheet, it will then remove that timesheet from the grid here. So that's basically what this does, a clean sweep. The next thing here is the export type options here. So yeah, we made some changes here to basically accommodate about any possible scenario. So you may find that you use maybe the first and second option more than you do the third. You may never use the third option, but we wanted to provide all the different options, and I want to explain those and probably explain them better once we go through some scenarios. But what this first one does, export type and activity type have to be used with each other. So if you select an export type, you have to select an activity type and vice versa. So our export types, we have payments with attendance. So this will include items that are for payments based on whatever activity option was selected and attendance. So on that CSV file, once you export it and you view that CSV file, column U is marked Y for the attendance posting, and then the compensation label will be included in column Y. So that's how it'll be reflected on the CSV file if you select this option. If you select payments without attendance, it's going to include items for payment, again, based on whatever activity option you selected. And it's only going to include items for payments only, so no attendance. So on that CSV file, column U will be marked to no. And then their attendance is already accounted for, maybe based on their job calendar. So it's only going to post the payments. And then the compensation label, again, will be included in column Y. This third option is attendance without payments. So this basically means you want to track attendance and import that, but no payment information. So it's only going to include items for attendance only, again, based on what you selected down here. So the activity options, let's talk about those, and then I'll go through some scenarios with you guys. The activity options, you have the ability to export all items. So your regular, your exception, and your overtime. Again, note that timesheet will not include leave items, and it will not include any timesheet holiday items. Those will never pull into the CSV file. So you need to, so if you're like, where are those at? They won't be on there. Those are accounted for in USPS. Obviously, with the leave items, you're posting your leave request and importing those into USPS. And for the holiday items, those are accounted for on the user's USPS job calendar. So those will never appear on the CSV file. So when you say export all, it's exporting regular, exception, and overtime. The second option is just exporting regular items. So it only includes the regular items. It will not include any exception or overtime. And then the last one is just the opposite. It's going to include exception and overtime items only. It will not include regular. So this is kind of just a summarized sheet, of what these do. And what I'm going to do is take you through a couple examples here. So this slide here is just showing those timesheets waiting on the export grid to be exported. So I can filter when you're in there. We do have some filter options. We have some enhancements, some JIRA issues out there to add additional filtering and timesheets. We want it to be similar to the leave request export. So we do have some, if you guys go out there in the ESS core project, and you just do a filter on timesheet, you're going to see all of the enhancement JIRA issues that we've created to improve export options as well as other things in timesheet. So here's my first example I want to talk about. So this is George. He is a teacher. And if I were to look at his timesheet right now, he would have regular hours for most of the days in that period. He does have a timesheet holiday marked on the 20th, and then he's got a scheduled sick day already for a full day on the 21st, but he also came in that evening to work an event. So he does have some exception hours added on his timesheet for those additional hours that day. He is an STRS employee, so no additional service credit is needed. Days a day, he doesn't have hours. So it's just something to keep in mind when we're selecting these export options. So I kind of want to give you a history of his timesheet. So with his setup, his attendance is already accounted for in USPS. So however, any exception or overtime payments, we don't have to worry about attendance, just payments must be obtained via his timesheet. So those extra 2 hours must be accounted for. Also, again, just a reminder that leave items and holiday items are not on the export file. So for George, when we want to go in and export his timesheet, what options would we be selecting in timesheet? And so I've got those selected here. I'm going to do the mark all timesheet as exported for sure, just to make sure everything gets updated to an export status. But when I'm thinking about the export type, I don't have to worry about his attendance. That's already being credited. But I have to ensure that the extra 2-hour payment is going to show up on his timesheet so that we can import that into USPS. So I'm selecting payments without attendance. And then also underneath his activity options, I just want to pull those exception hours. So I'm going to select export, exception, and OT items only. So when that spreadsheet generates, here is the results. And I'm sorry if you can't see that down here, way down here at the bottom. It's just one line item because remember, he just had an exception for 2 hours on the 21st. So it's going to provide the details for his payment. And it's miscellaneous. In the background, like exception hours will translate over to the miscellaneous. And I think OT will translate over, I think, to the OV code for USPS. So you'll see MIS here for miscellaneous. You will see that column U marks the attendance, like he doesn't need attendance, he's daily. So that's already been taken care of. So that's going to be marked no, to be said, without attendance. And then it's showing his compensation label here as well. And so this will then get imported in. And when he goes into import it into USPS attendance and selects to whether future current, it will track those additional 2 hours he needs to be paid for. So I wanted to kind of show like a teacher example, maybe a possible way, just to kind of get you guys a little more familiar with how that would work with these options selected. So something to, to think about here. This shows his timesheet after export. So after I exported it, whether I import it into USPS or not, doesn't matter. But if I go and look at that timesheet in ESS afterwards, because I said mark all, it's going to hit all of those regular items. It's going to hit the holiday that they had, the sick leave that he had, obviously the exception too. So you'll see over here that they all will be changed from an X um, to a check mark to indicate that those items have been exported, and then that um, item on the grid will disappear. So it will no longer need to be, it's all pretty much taken care of. It's removed from the grid and he's good to go. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, my next example here. And this is Keith. He is a regular custodian. So he isn't a sub, he's a regular custodian. So let's talk about his timesheet. And so he had a personal leave day for a full day on the 12th. He also has a holiday. He's a regular custodian on a contract with, you know, all the benefits and stuff. So he's got the holiday. And also, he did have to come in on that holiday due to an emergency situation. So he did have to work 5 hours that day, even though it was a holiday. So he went in and worked. Now he is a SERS employee, and so he does have additional service credit hours hourly that are needed. So we need to account for those for his attendance information. So that's something to keep in mind. So, and I have that marked here. Attendance for regular hours is already accounted for through his job. However, those exception hours need to be credited. And so those are obtained via his timesheet. So we'll talk about that here further and explain that. Again, leave and holiday are not included, so we don't have to worry about that. So what options do we select for his timesheet? Let's talk about those options. We would, again, mark all items as exported. And then their export type. We need payments with attendance. We need to make sure that those exception hours he gets credit for, payment-wise and attendance-wise. So that's why we select that export type. And also the activity, everything else is already on his contract. We don't have to, you know, account for his regular. He's already getting paid, you know, through USPS, so that's already handled. But those exception hours need to be paid, and those have to come from his timesheet. So I would select payment with attendance and export exception and OT items only. Again, here is his CSV file that gets generated. It's only going to include those 5 hours, has his payment information here. And then this time it's marked U. The column U is marked Y to make sure that his attendance for those 5 hours gets credited as well. And then his compensation label here. Okay. So now I'm going to pick on a sub. You know, I had to pick on a sub, right? So, and it depends on how these subs are set up, you know, but on timesheets. But the way this district has them set up is they have a sub set up on a flexible shift for this district. So, and his position references a blank job calendar in USPS. So, which sounds pretty normal, standard. So both his payment and attendance is dependent on his timesheet. So whatever he puts in his timesheet, he's going to get credit, attendance and payment wise. So with being a sub, he's not eligible for leave. And so I have an example here of what Ray entered in his timesheet for the days he worked this pay period. So it shows here he worked the 10th, 12th, 14th, 18th, and 19th, various different hours. So, you know, these all are 2 hours each day, but they're all different times of the day. And so when we need to export him, what options do we choose on the export option? Well, we want to make sure that we mark all timesheet as exported. This isn't as critical at this point because all he has is just these reg hours. He doesn't have anything outside of that. Those all will appear on his CSV file anyways. So this one isn't as critical. It's going to take care of all 5 items anyways, but if you're in the habit of doing it, you can check mark that. So my export type, I want payments with attendance. I need to account for both. So I'm going to select that. And then my activity option, what am I selecting? I could select all items, regular exception overtime, just to make sure that I get everything for him, but really he only had regs, so I could have just selected export reg items only. Either way, I'm going to get the same results on my CSV file. And here is his CSV file. So it's for all those 5 days, shows the 2 hours. Yeah, I probably don't have it with the information I selected. I don't think I have the how or the amount on here. It should be. So here's his reg. Here is showing that it's going to be credited for attendance, also for his payment. And here's his label for that. So that's how the sub would be set up. And I just used, his timesheet as an example. So obviously, once that gets exported out, all those 5 items will then be, if I look at his timesheet again, this exported column will all show green check marks to indicate that they've been exported and that timesheet is off that export timesheet grid. Okay, I hit about every possible scenario except for one. We, hit the payments with attendance, payments without attendance. And the one I didn't talk about yet is this attendance without payments. So when would you use this option and what does the CSV file look like? So yeah, this may not be as popular obviously as the others, but if you need to track time worked, but not payments, that's already taken care of in USPS, to track it for auditing purposes, you can use this option. If the employee schedule fluctuates and you need to give them credit for the time they worked each day, but their payment's already determined based on their compensation in USPS, that would be another reason why. And so just to explain, what that does. So if this probably isn't as important, but because all of those will probably be included anyways, but I just habit's sake, mark all timesheets as exported. I'm choosing attendance without payments, and then I'm selecting the activity type. So I'm just going to select all. When I look at the CSV file that gets generated, it does look a little different. You'll notice that some stuff's missing over here. Remember, we're only selecting attendance only. And so when selecting this, that CSV file is formatted to only import attendance journals when you're posting it into USPS. So everything after column I is not necessary. So that's why it's going to show empty in the CSV file. That's why this one looks a little different than the other CSV files. Okay. Any questions about those export options? The last thing I wanted to touch upon, and I did not touch upon this in the timesheet section of the training, and I so apologize, I didn't make the connection at that point. But I wanted to explain something in regards to the creating timesheets for certain employees. So if you have employees that have a position with a non-contract compensation, if that employee obtains their payroll payments via their timesheet, then the district must ensure that the compensation stop date for those employees exist on their compensation record in USPS. So those can't be left blank. And I know the first question is why? Because we've had them like that forever, right? The date is required in order to apply the timesheet item to the correct compensation in USPS. So again, this is for positions with a non-contract compensation if the employee obtains their payroll payments via their timesheet. So it may just be talking subs. So I just, want to keep that in mind that they're obtaining their payroll payments via their timesheet. So if that stop date is left blank, what happens, and you may have come across this when you're doing your testing, when exporting the timesheet data from ESS, that CSV file will include errors for those payment line items. And you'll see that off to the far right at the end of each line, and it will say, no valid compensations found for position, blah, blah, blah on this day. And that payment information will not get posted into USPS if you attempt to post it in there. So until this gets resolved, and the reason you're getting this error is because that position's compensation does not have a stop date on it. So the next question may be, how do I easily update this? And you can go out there and extract them out of core compensation, filtering on those non-contract compensations. You can filter on last pay date to get those employees that have been paid throughout the current fiscal year, extract that into a spreadsheet. And then if the current non-contract compensation needs to be updated, you can use mass change or mass load. Now, just a couple things I want to point out here. If your district uses non-contract compensations over multiple years, they don't create new ones every year, then you can mass update the stop date to be a date in the future. And it's up to you what you want to use, 2099, 2055, something, way in the future, something several years out. And that's how you would update that stop date. Now, if you're a district that creates new non-contract compensation each year, you have to remember that compensation stop date must be within the pay period of the last payroll the employee is being paid this year, this fiscal year. So, something to think about here. If you guys are going to be using timesheets and you're going to be using them for payments for non-contract compensation employees. Okay. If this slideshow is helpful, I can put this out here in our registration page there, link that in. Let me know, and I will make sure that I include that in there. But I just thought this would be easier to explain the export options and using examples, as well as, just explaining this whole non-contract compensation thing here. Okay. Now I am going to try and switch back, and I'm going to have to go and switch that back again. I'm so sorry. Go back to this. There, you guys should be able to see my timesheet export application again here. All right. I'm going to go back to the actual list of bugs, and the rest of what we had for the recap here. I'm not really going to go through the patch information. That's all behind the scenes and doesn't really affect you guys. Also, just we had one bug, is to handle the holiday line items better on the timesheets. We were getting errors, and so we fixed that. when trying to replace line items for the leave request information getting pulled in correctly into the timesheet. So, so that's the only bug that we had. Okay. I think that's all that covers the recap. The one thing I wanted to just make note of is I always like to look ahead to see what's happening here. And if you guys don't have any other questions regarding the ESS recap, the next thing I just want to talk about is what's coming up next. And guess what? It's fiscal year end time. Blows my mind that we're getting close. We do have our fiscal year end reviews coming up. So on the 9th, next week, I believe Andrea is going to be going through the USPS fiscal year end checklist. And once we get our supporting materials updated, we'll provide the link here so that you guys can review that. And then the following week on May 16th, we're going to be covering the USAS and the inventory fiscal year end day. So again, we'll provide the link. And then just kind of looking ahead here in June, we do have a deeper dive after our recap session on the 6th. On the 13th, we are going to be doing a deeper dive into reporting features in USAS and payroll. So that's why we noted this. This will be a longer session for sure. So we just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of that because I know, it's getting to be a busy time of year. And so, but I think this will be a very helpful session just to get better familiar with the reporting features in USAS and payroll, and something definitely to share with your districts. Okay, I think we'll stop there. If you guys don't have any other questions, I want to thank you guys all for attending the recap session today, and everyone have a great weekend.